Hi, I'm Lisa Leiter. In Chicago Business Today, Lawrence Freed's legal problems. It's not just Block 37 plaguing developer Freed and Associates. The firm is at risk of losing projects from Colorado to Michigan and is dealing with everything from foreclosure lawsuits to fights with investors. On top of that, the company is now under investigation by the Wisconsin Department of Justice over a loan used to buy a Madison Mall from the endowment of the University of Wisconsin. Eddie Babe wrote about Freed in this week's print edition of Crain's, and he joined me to talk about it. Eddie, let's start with the Freed property that's received the most attention, Block 37 on State Street. The bank is about to sell it. Where does that stand?
Well, we know there's the sheriff's foreclosure auction scheduled for February 2nd. Now, the likely outcome there is that no one will bid more than is owed on the property, about $180 million. So this is sort of a technical thing where the banks essentially gain control. But also, separately, they are marketing the note for sale. They have been for some time. Sources tell us that the initial bids have come in at about $85 million, which you're not even talking about half of the value that's owed. We hear there's some disagreement among the banking group on how to proceed from here, so we'll have to see where they go from here.
Okay. As far as lawsuits go, they have one on this property in Schaumburg. What's the latest there?
So in Schaumburg, you have there's sort of a trio of suits. First, you had Freed's investment partner. This is the streets of Woodfield, a very big, successful property right outside of the Woodfield Mall. Freed recently opened a Crate and Barrel store and a Whole Foods there. But you now have the Kimco, which is their investment partner, suing over basically, alleging that Freed had taken money out of the project and that they should have been owed those payments as a part owner of the property. In turn, the bank got involved, Bank of America, and suing, saying, no, we should have gotten that money. Kimco's then sued Bank of America, saying, no, actually, we're in line for that. Hard to know for sure, but Freed tells us that they are close to a settlement with Kimco and resolving the issue. But you do also separately have the bank moving to put what's known as an equity receiver in there, which would basically get control of the cash. The bank sort of taking this and seeking this step in a separate foreclosure case on another property so that they essentially would get to control where the cash goes from that project.
Okay, it's not just foreclosure lawsuits, investor lawsuits here. Now, Freed and Associates is facing this investigation in Wisconsin over this mall loan. What's going on there?
So in this mall loan, Larry Freed is the president of the organization. He has an older sister and an older brother who essentially own together 50%, while Larry owns the other 50% of the company. His sister here, in response to the University of Wisconsin Foundation suing to foreclose essentially on its loan, sort of in response said, I never signed that document where I sign onto this loan as a guarantee. So the University of Wisconsin Foundation, according to court filings, took this matter to the Wisconsin Department of Justice. They have begun and confirmed that there's an ongoing investigation into the matter. So that is where that's at. And
what kind of penalties could he face in this case?
Yeah, well, it's a felony, and the Department of Justice, the spokesman there, tells us that it's the kind of penalty that could, as much as 3 years prison time for forgery of this nature.
So how much trouble is Larry Freed and his firm in right now?
Well, I mean, clearly the criminal probe in Wisconsin, maybe the biggest. They have been trying to sell assets, to try to raise money, presumably to pay off some of these obligations. They've been working with capital partners to come in and buy their notes. As they said in the statement to us, they have been actively working to do that. They say all their issues relate to the Bank of America projects, that the bank is really coming down on them. They say their other lenders have been working with them, and that they've been having success and doing well with their other projects.
Okay, and one of those other projects is the Sullivan Center, known as the former Carson Peary Scott building. What did they say to you in their statement about the leasing opportunities there?
Yeah, they said in this statement that they are close to signing leases that would bring the retail space, they're not insignificant, as you mentioned, it's a former Carson's department store, to 90% leased. That's as far as they'll go. We've reported in the past that they're in talks with Target, so we think they will land Target there relatively soon, which would just be an incredible deal for State Street, where Freed is the biggest retail landlord, and for the downtown market. And given the context of all the legal troubles and the battles Freed is fighting, could be a huge win and a saving, deal for the company. So we will have to see.
All right, Eddie. Thanks so much for joining us. Great story.
Thanks.
And that's this edition of Chicago Business Today. Be sure to check out Eddie's story in this week's print edition of Crain's and on chicagobusiness.com. Thanks for watching. We'll see you tomorrow.